Hey everybody, it's Amber here at the B channel where my objective is to bless, edify, and encourage others to live their best lives. So, on today's episode of this podcast, we are going to be having a meaningful discussion about this faith walk. And I have a special guest with me here today. Charfaye, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Hello, everyone. My name is Charfaye Lynn, and I am also walking this journey out, ready to have this meaningful conversation. So, hello.
So, what has your faith journey been like?
It has been just that, a journey. You take your time with it, you take just time to go through the steps, go through the process. And for me, I'm still on it, obviously. But it started back maybe about, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Mhm.
So still in the process, still going through it. And I'm just taking my time with it. Everything that I do has been very intentional. And what I've learned the most is just gathering community, connecting with different people who are also on that journey, and then also taking that time to spend with God. Putting yourself, or He might be putting you in that space of isolation, to really just reflect, to really just understand what it means and, where you are in that season and how you're supposed to navigate, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's true because sometimes we frown upon that space of being alone, but you can really grow a lot in that space when you just embrace that there's beauty in those quiet moments. That's what I've been learning because it can be easy to just feel like, oh, I have to have all of these people around, and you learn that you need that solitude sometimes.
And the funny thing about that is, I was looking, I was looking for not only the community, but even like close friends and, family members. There was always a time where I just had to go back to God. Like I would be talking with, one of my good friends. I'm on the phone with her, I'm just like trying to, just kind of vent, telling her what I'm going through, what I'm dealing with. And, no shade, to my friends, but we're all older now, we got things going on. Most of them have kids and things like that. So it was like they were listening, but then it was like, oh, the kids is in the background. Or it was like, yeah, girl, I hear you, but, let me call you back. I got, the kids is doing this or something's going on with them. So there was always like this distraction to the point where it was like, all right, I'm gonna call you back. And then it's like, okay. And then I just had to sit with myself again. It's just like, it was always these certain instances and points where it was like, God is like, you're not going to anybody else but me. In this moment, you do have these people. They are here for you when you need them. But at this season, at this point in your life, it just needs to be me and you because we got to talk about a few things.
Yeah, you're right about that. One thing about God, He is never distracted. He is always on the ball when it comes to you. And the really unfathomable thing about it is all the people in the world who are, you know, working towards being more aligned with God and calling themselves his children. Like he has all these people that are his children, but he still can speak specifically to you and whatever's going on with you, he can know what's going on. And I like to say what my friend said. She always talks about the God of surprise, that he is the God of surprise, but he is not
Yeah.
surprised by you.
Mhm.
So I really appreciate that too. Like man, when everybody else distracted, God ain't distracted. He listening, even when it seems like he not. He'll show you. Like
Yeah.
stuff will come your way and be like, oh, he was listening to me.
Hmm. Like I would just get off the phone with them and then I'd just be like, oh, well, it's just me and you, God, Well, let me just tell you, because I know you listening. I know you hear me. Let me just sit here and talk with you because, I guess that is the space that I'm supposed to be in. That's what we're supposed to be doing here, creating this relationship. I'm supposed to be growing with you in this season. I'm dealing with friends who, they got boyfriends, they got, like I said, just other stuff going on. Family members, they got their own lives too. All my siblings, we're all grown. And it's just like, in those moments, I really appreciated that because it was like you said, like he is never distracted. He is always there listening and no interruptions. You could just talk.
Right.
And
God ain't like, hold on a minute. Somebody else on the other line.
right.
He's like, I'm hungry. I got something to eat.
Yes. So I really enjoyed that time. Like at first it was very uncomfortable for me because like I said, I'm always used to just being able to call my girlfriend up and be like, girl, this happened and da 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 da, and we just sitting there talking for hours and hours on the phone. But once I realized, like, no, this is a relationship I need to have with myself as far as discovering who I am and just getting into that space of really trying to figure out how I'm supposed to move in this season. And it's like, you can't do what you used to do. And that was another thing. He was calling me out of that comfort zone to be like, all right, let's try something new now. This is what we're doing in this new season. And I had to accept that, and he made it so that you really don't got no other choice.
Right. So what would you say has been the biggest struggle? Like, would that be the biggest struggle?
Well, I would say it's not too much of a struggle now because I've got more comfortable in that space to just be able to sit and talk with him or, just be able to be in that space of solitude. Um,
Mhm.
Now I kind of feel like I'm moving into a new season where he's calling me to get out of my introverted ways, and be a little bit more outspoken and, get into spaces of networking with different people. Um, so I feel like it was a struggle, like I said at the beginning, but now there's I don't know what you want to call it. There's a new challenge for me, which is to, okay, I put you in this space, solitude. We talked. Out of that space, I birthed a book, I birthed two books. And now I feel like he's telling me, now you need to put yourself back out here. You need to tell your story. You need to connect with other women. You need to have these conversations and you need to share, what we talked about in that space and time. So,
Yeah, so what, just for the audience, what are the names of those books?
okay, so my first book that I wrote was titled Healing for the Broken Heart. And that was the space where I was navigating through a breakup. So it's basically a 30-day devotional.
Mhm.
And I kind of did it a little differently than like a normal devotional.
Mhm.
So basically, each day is like me going through the emotions of a breakup. You first in the relationship, and then you're kind of in a space where you're like, did I make the right decision? Do I go back? Do I completely cut this person off? Do I, block them and then, go and stalk their Facebook page, because I'm feeling a little lonely and, I want to know what they up to, what they doing. So it kind of goes through the ebbs and flows of, how do I deal with that? How do I process it? Each day I talk about a story, as far as what I was dealing with. And then at the end of each chapter, there's like a prayer, a scripture to kind of get you in a space of, praying through these things. And that's, me just kind of telling my story because that's how I got through it.
Mhm.
I was going to say too, the other book that I wrote was kind of me transitioning out of that. So it was like, okay, I talked about that. I'm over the heartbreak. And now it's in my season of self love, building myself back up, finding myself, because a lot of times you can lose yourself, in relationships. And it's like you get out of it and then it's like, well, who am I really? All this time I was so invested in somebody else that I wasn't taking time to take care of myself. Really, discover the things that I like about me, really get into a space of what I'm actually supposed to be doing here. What is my purpose? So, all of those things went into my next book. I think I had it. Yeah, which was 9 Lessons on Self Love. So, I really went in on that book and was just like,
Oh,
let's talk about it because there's a lot of things that you don't really take the time to think about when you're in a space of like coming out of a breakup. Then when you transition into, okay, now it's time to focus on me, there's some good and some bad things because you have to really take accountability.
mm,
Some things, are not just everybody else's fault. Some things are your fault. And then you also have to understand to give yourself grace through that process and not
mhm.
be in a space of, shame, but understanding that that's what you went through and now it's time to grow through it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. It's important to have those times of self-reflection to understand the process, and then that way, unfortunately, breakups happen, but then the next time it won't be so hard because you actually did the work to walk through it. And now other people can benefit from the work you did to walk through it, and how to get back to that place of loving yourself, seeing yourself, making space for yourself to grow, evolve, mature, and all that. So that was great that you took the time to write books on both ends of the spectrum. Okay, I'm down and out, but baby, this my comeback season. Okay,
Right. That is
so
right.
that was wonderful.
Yeah, because it's just like I don't want people to have to have those experiences. Like some people, including myself, we can be hard headed, we can be stubborn, and it's like, no, I'm gonna go see for myself. you
Right,
know,
like Ariel.
like I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna go through this,
Right,
and I'm gonna have to hit my head. I'm gonna have to, go through it in order for me to be like, dang, I really should have listened and, you know, avoided this. But sometimes, people will read a book or watch somebody's story and they'll be like, okay, I'm going to take some notes. So if I happen to run into this situation, I know now, don't do that. because I,
right. It only take one time to get burnt, and then you'll know. You'll
right.
learn. Like, I ain't gonna do that no more. So,
right.
speaking of that, what has been the biggest triumph in your faith walk?
Um, mm, I think I've had a lot. Oh, that's hard. I would just say continuing to process all of this. Like I feel like God is so good that he just continues to keep giving you wisdom and knowledge and understanding about things. Like your eyes are continuously always being open to new things. And it's like, wait a minute, I didn't notice that before. And now, you're just revealing these things to me. And it's just like I said, it's just opening my eyes to a lot of things, forgiving people, showing grace. You look at things from a whole new mindset when your eyes are open to see things differently. And I think that's been one of the things that I'm really appreciating because I wasn't always in that space. so,
Yeah, it takes a lot of work to get to the place where you can say, you know what, I forgive you. You know what, I'm gonna show you the grace that God showed me. And basically, like when you think about those two things, forgiveness and grace, it always talks about forgive because Christ forgave you, or show
right.
grace, because He's full of grace. Like, so it's like He's not asking us to do anything that's not in His nature. Everything He's asking us to do is inside of Him. So we're trying to reflect Him. That's like the big overarching goal, which can be a tall order sometimes down here, but you know,
Okay.
but I just think that it's hard, but it's doable with Him, right?
Right. And that's another reason why I'm just like, I continue to do this walk. You know, people ask, like, well, you know, how do you know that God is real? Or how do you know that He's working? You have these experiences. Like, literally, you are transformed into a whole new person. You know, once you get into that space of having a relationship with Him, praying, spending that time in the Word, and it does this transformation on you. Like, it's hard to explain. You just have to experience it yourself. And that's what I think I try to promote to everybody, is just that you just got to try it for yourself. Like,
Right.
I
That's
can,
the only way. Right.
right. Like, I can give you all these examples. I can talk about it, and we should. You know, I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but there's a whole new level that it goes to when it's like, he really did show up like that. You know, he really did change my heart. He really did make me into a different person, so that I'm not holding on to things or being bitter about something. You know, I've let it go, and I'm free, you know, in a sense. Like, I'm not in a space of holding on to negative stuff. It just puts you in a different space, and it's hard to explain. Like I said, you just have to try it out for yourself.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of like a there's a misconception sometimes that, oh, you do something like one time. No, it's about daily, over and over and over and over again. You're having to forgive people. You're having to be patient. It's a muscle that you have to exercise and choose to exercise it because it gives us free will, which means we have a choice in it. But if we don't exercise that muscle, we're only hurting ourselves. So that's kind of the thing that I had to really walk through, and see that. Like you said, you gotta see for yourself in that regard. You gotta let's see for yourself in that direction. Let's see
Right.
who God is for ourselves and not just rely on other people to tell us and like piggyback off of their relationship. So that's something I had to learn too. Like, man, like you have to really, see it. And sometimes it's hard because he's up there and you can't see him physically. But it's
Right.
a spiritual relationship, And I was watching this podcast early this morning called Therapy and Prayer. Check it out. Check it out. It was so good.
Write
Um,
that down.
yeah, and I really enjoyed it because she was saying, it's a spiritual relationship. It's not a physical thing because you can't see him, but it's in the spiritual realm that we're relating to him. So it was so deep because it was like, yo, that's what we have to do. Just be aware that we're relating to him on that level. Like, so we have to really just concentrate. And also, it's not so much about um well, it's like people be like, oh, is how do you know he's real? I always tell myself like this: I would rather go through my life believing that he's real, and then I find out that you know, then to find out that he was real and I didn't believe.
Mm-hmm.
Because I
Right.
don't want to get to that point. Like, oh my gosh, you were real, and then my whole life I was doubt. But then it's like it's too late now. Like, so it's like I would rather believe and look crazy than to get there and not believe, and then I'm like disappointed and I'm like sad. So it's one
Right.
of those types of things. You just have to just have faith. Literally, that's what faith is. You can't see. You cannot see him, but you have to
Okay.
believe. And it says that in First Peter, it talks about how you can't see him, but you love him. And so it's one of those things that we
And
have to,
there's no harm in that.
yeah, we gotta tap into that. And also another way people don't understand this a lot of times too. We have to understand that um when it comes to experiencing God, it could be a song that reminds you of something. It could be a person that tells you something. It could be a sermon or a podcast. And maybe
Yes.
there's a scripture that you've been hearing over and over again. That's God speaking to you. He's trying to tell you something. And one of the things that I had to start doing was taking note of that. Like it would
Yeah.
be one of those things where I have to literally, I'm laying down. I have to get out of my bed and write something down like, yo, I just heard this idea or this concept about God like 2 or 3 times in a row. Maybe I should write that down. Maybe I should see what's going on here. Like, what is God trying to tell me? Because I really believe when it's repeated and it's something like scriptural, then it's something to pay attention to.
I agree. And actually, I have a story about that because when I was in my season of like isolation, just me and God, I listened to different music. But mostly I was getting into the space of like, especially when I was in my time with God, obviously kind of listening to worship music. This one day, I was just sitting in my space with God talking, and I had my playlist on, my playlist of worship. And I don't know how this song kind of maneuvered into my playlist of worship, but it was a song by John Legend, and
Mm-hmm.
it's called Conversations in the Dark. And if you have a chance, go listen to it. But it, I broke down and cried when I was listening to that song. It just came on and it says, let's have conversations in the dark. There's no one around but me and you. And
Mm.
it was so like, it just hit me so hard because, child, I'm about to get emotional right now. But it literally just hit me so hard when I was in that space of just me and him because he spoke to me through that song. It wasn't a gospel song. It wasn't like something super, dramatic, but
Mm-hmm.
it let me know that like it's just me and you here. We're just having this conversation. And how after that I was like, okay, like I'm all in now. Like you've shown me things that I'm able to see. Back to what I was saying before, like you really opened my eyes to see that even though it is a thing where, like you say, he's up there, we're down here, there's still ways that he makes these connections with you, but you have to want it for yourself. Nobody can do this walk for you. And that was I seen a quote the other day. It was like, people can walk the path with you, but nobody can walk it for you.
Right.
So, like I was saying before, we can have these conversations, we can encourage people, which I believe, once again, that we should do. But you will never know the true relationship that you can have with him and how he can show up in your life and open your eyes to things if you're not present with him, if you don't take that initiative. Because like you said, he's not going to force you into anything you don't want to do. We all got free will over here. We can
Yes.
make those decisions. But once he understands that, all right, we locked in, so let's do this. Let me show you some things. And that was like, wow. And I had listened to that song before, but it just had so much more meaning to it. Every single like lyric to it, and it was just like, wow. And I actually walked down the aisle at my wedding to that song because I was
Oh.
like, yo, it was just like making a whole like full circle for me. And that was just like only one of the experiences, like so many things that I could say, as to why I'm on this journey and I continue to be on this journey, because he's just really opened my eyes to a lot of different things. And I'm grateful for that.
That's beautiful. And as far as like being in the dark, it's really interesting that you said that because Psalm 40 came to mind when it talks about being in the pit. And that's where you had some of your best conversations. Like when you in that low point, when you in that dark place, you're right. You don't have nobody. You really don't
Right,
have anybody, but it's just you and God because other people might not understand. Maybe you
right,
don't have the strength to get on the phone and call that friend or text that friend, but you can talk to God. You ain't got to call nobody. You ain't got to text. You ain't got to email. You ain't got to DM. You can just talk. You can journal to God if you can't
right.
speak. You know, and
Mm,
what you were saying about music hits so hard because sometimes you can listen to a song in one season, and it's not like you don't. It's not like you make that type of connection. But then you come back to it, and that's a whole different thing.
girl.
Cause for me, that song would be like Kirk Franklin, "You Are," because
Yeah.
I remember when I was younger and I would listen to that song, and I wouldn't cry, but now by the end I'm like, oh, like it's like I'm like, oh, just now thinking about it, I'm just like, but it's just one of them things, and music is powerful that way. So it's very important what we listen to too, right?
Right. That's been a struggle with, our culture today, but there there's some music coming out, okay, Christian artists or whatever you want to call them, they
Yes,
be having some bops.
yes. I'm feeling this Christian R&B moment,
Hmm.
you
Yeah.
know. So what do you think that we could do better as a faith community, as brothers and sisters in Christ? How can we do better? You know?
Just supporting each other. Like it I don't know. I don't want to say it's hard out here because to me, I don't feel like it is, but I feel like people have to truly be about this walk. Like, there's some people that, will scream and holler about, bless you, sister and brother, and X, Y, and Z. And it's like, you do that in front of everybody else. But then when I come to you with something, it's just like, you a whole different person. So, I mean, I give grace, like I mentioned before, everybody gets grace. We're all not perfect. Somebody could be having a bad day. So, you might see a different side of them. You never know what people are going through or dealing with. But I just feel like at the end of the day, we just got to continue to support each other, and we got to continue to be in spaces where we're available. Let it be known, and let it be known that you're available. And that's the space I feel like I'm in, because I don't think it was really easy for me to jump on, my Instagram or my Facebook and be like, hey, I'm looking for, these types of people. Or even for me to not even have to say it, but to just post different content. And then, the algorithm sometimes, does the right thing and connects you with certain people. And I feel like that's kind of what happened, with me running into you on
Oh,
my Instagram. Because I'm like, I'm just looking for people who are like minded individuals, people who believe in God, and people who are just trying to walk this path. We're just trying to be better people, you know.
right.
So I think community is definitely important. I think I mentioned that a couple times. So I'm
Mhm.
kind of in a space where I'm trying to figure that out. I'm trying to create my own community, whether it be on Facebook or Instagram or however I want to set that up. I'm not sure yet. I've been kind of praying and trying to strategize through that process, but I don't know. What do you think about that? I know you asking me the questions, but
Hey, I always got something to say. But as far as community is concerned, there is a lot of like nuance to it. There are tiers to it. That's what I'm learning too. Like there are people that you just talk to and y'all kind of shoot the breeze. Then there's
yeah,
people that you talk to and y'all confide in each other. Y'all prayer warriors. Like they ask you, how can I pray for you? Or they ask how you doing. They check on and you're willing to do the same for them. So that like that starts that bond. And you do Bible study with people and just people that's willing to actually fast with you and stuff like that. For me, it's a new journey to have those types of people in my space. And I'm learning also in real time. This is a real time lesson to be vulnerable. Don't assume that I can't say certain things because someone is a fellow believer. Like to
yeah,
know that it's like there was a time when they weren't.
right,
you know, so
right.
it's like cuz sometimes you get in this space like, "Oh, they're a they are a like a church mother type." You feel like it's kind of like a thing where they in college or
Mm-hmm.
like in college as far as Christianity, and you're like in high school still trying to figure it out, trying to get your sea
Right.
legs and like even like okay how to pray corporately like together, like that idea of praying like with people like on the phone and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
uh the idea of just learning together, like sharing thoughts about the word of God together, the idea of fasting together, the idea of um praying for people when you're out of each other's presence, like just like thinking about people in that way, how to
Right.
love, how to be of service, learning all of those types of things, having that servant energy, that servant heart, that
Yeah.
agape energy. So that's something that really takes time. And I'm learning that if I want to be in community like I say I do, if I want to get out of my shell, just like you, and be
Right.
less introverted sometimes and be more confident, I have to align myself with people that's going to challenge me, not be a yes man, people that's going to say things sometimes that
Mhm.
I don't necessarily agree with, or say things that might be hurtful at first, but it might be true. I might need to take heed to it because I've
Right.
understood that for myself. I've been getting to that place of self awareness, like, they right. So it's like it hurt a little bit, but then you like, okay, you got a point for real. So I'm learning to embrace the beauty of that, and that's something that I'm cultivating right now in my life, and just learning that you go through different phases with people. There are different seasons of friendship, and
Right.
but anyway, it's like I think we have to learn that it's worth the risk to take
Mhm.
that step to have community. Because
Yeah.
sometimes you're like, okay, well, another thing that happens is you get to this space of self sabotage, and you're like, well, maybe I'm not good enough for them, or maybe I'm
Right.
not Christian enough. Maybe I could do more of the spiritual disciplines, and it's like it's that type of thing that you got to learn.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my goodness, like you gotta get out of your head and just get into your heart space with it. And I'm like, it's so much. It's
No,
so much.
you I'm in that space too. Like, especially when you were talking about, like, I'm still on my journey. So being in a space of being vulnerable to just kind of say stuff and not be like, oh, well, they might be too spiritual or too churchy to, take in what I'm saying. And I don't want to say the wrong thing because, I still believe in God. I believe in Jesus, but I'm in a space now where I'm still on this journey. Maybe I haven't elevated to, where you're at right now, but
Right.
I don't want to offend anybody, or I don't want to sound
Yeah.
like I'm not a part of it because
like I had to I'm learning because I can be blunt. And I'm like, maybe there's a better way to say this. And then sometimes you be
right,
like, okay, well maybe I don't need to say that. And then you're like, but I need to say how I feel because if not, it's gonna get
right,
all bottled up. So it's that dance you have to do.
right. Yeah. I mean, God created us to be individuals as we are. And,
Hmm.
I don't want to try and put on a mask or, try to pretend to be somebody else or try to emulate them. Like, I'm just
Oh,
me and I'm walking
oh,
this journey just like you are. So,
come on.
let's do it together. Let's figure it out. And,
Yes,
show me some grace. I show you some grace. And, we can walk through it together. But I don't want to ever get to a space where I'm trying too hard. It's like, yeah, we're supposed to,
right.
grow and evolve, but in the same space, like, I don't want to lose who I am. I don't want to,
Yeah. You hitting the nail on the head because I feel like I had to learn that too. Like it's okay to be me. I can still love God and be me. I don't have
right,
to put on this whole facade or just try to please people or try to be so like up there that I'm not any earthly good. You know what I mean? So it's
right.
it's it's a lot. It's a lot. And it's like
Yeah,
you gotta understand too, like God loves you. He knows who you are. He wants you to improve, but he also wants you to be you because he made you a certain way. And he's not like, oh, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't have did that. Like he out there crossing stuff off about you. He not tossing stuff
right.
out the pot, out the mix. He
Okay.
he he know what he was doing, and he said, okay, that's who she is, and I'm gonna send people in her life that can challenge the weaknesses, but can encourage the strength. You know.
Yes,
So
and
that's what I'm really learning.
yeah, girl. See, We here.
Like
Because
I'm getting there, man. I'm like, you gotta give yourself some grace too sometimes too, because it's uh, like it's easy to just go in your shell and be like, all right, I ain't gonna try none of this. I'm out. I'm gonna head out.
okay.
Like you just gonna be by yourself. It's gonna be you and God and nobody else. You don't need nobody else.
Mhm.
But you gotta understand that all the verses that say one another, there's a reason they're there. Cause you can't do life by yourself. Cause he keeps saying one another. You gonna need somebody to walk with. Can't be. It ain't say by yourself. It's saying one
Right.
another, one another. One. If you can't do something for someone if there's no one there. So
Right.
I'm like, girl, you gonna have to get out this shell.
Yeah.
Try not like try harder, but like just work on it. Like make a
Right.
concerted effort to learn how to do that. And it's not too late. I might be a late bloomer, but it's not too late.
Never too late. And that's why I say too, like when I started getting in my head about, my podcast or about, getting in front of the camera and talking, it's like I deliver the message the way I deliver it. And it's going to resonate with whoever it's supposed to resonate with. I'm going to give this message and some people might not be feeling it. Okay, well, that's because it's not for them. But my tribe and the people who God is going to put in front of me or the people who God is going to connect me with, there's a reason for that. And if I'm not coming and being my authentic self, then I'm not going to connect with the people I'm supposed to be connected with. I'm going to be connecting with the wrong people because I'm
Right,
trying to be somebody else. And God said, no, you're supposed to show up as you are so I can connect you with the people that you're supposed to be connected with. You know,
right.
connecting the dots the way they should be. So it's
No,
hard, but
yeah.
I just continue to do it. Like this is the way I present myself. This is the way I believe he taught me to be. I'm very chill, very laid back, and that's just my personality. I understand we're all supposed to grow and evolve, and that's where I'm in the space of putting myself out here, speaking more, talking more, networking more, but don't lose sight of who you truly are. Still have that same thing that you bring so that you can connect with the people you're supposed to connect with.
Absolutely. I also learned too, like, you know how like people be like you have a spiritual family and then you have your blood family. I'm learning that in true relationships and true community is they become one, so you don't have to like kind of have that separation in your mind anymore. And I'm
Right.
learning that it's really about that oneness. Oneness is not just for marriage, and that there's a lot of similarities between what God says about marriage and what God says about just other relationships in general. So it's
Right.
like it's about oneness, about unity and harmony, right? And harmony needs different notes. It can't all be the same note. And so I was just like, man, it's so deep when you think about that. Because my friends like, it's gonna be a real sisterhood. And what do sisters and brothers do sometimes? They kind of go at each other, but
Argue.
there's love there.
Right.
And I'm learning that it's okay to disagree. It's okay
Hmm.
to have my own opinion. But
Right.
how do I have that opinion?
Right.
Am I listening? Am I willing to be
Mhm.
corrected? Am I willing to just like show some restraint sometime? Am I willing to not interrupt, when somebody's talking? So I'm having to learn it because as an only child, I didn't have those tools because I
Yeah.
didn't have the luxury or the good fortune, if you will, to have those brothers and sisters blood wise. So
Right.
now we gotta cultivate that spiritual family, but understand that the goal is oneness. So you can feel like you can let your hair down. You're not walking on
Right.
eggshells and just talk and whatever it is. It doesn't have to be, oh, this prayer. Let's do this Bible study fast. Like it doesn't have to be just that. You can say, girl, XYZ happened today. Or just be able to just
Okay.
say things.
Right. Like you said, it's that vulnerability. And when you're in a space where you could just say stuff and people will be like, okay, it's not like a big like, oh my,
Right,
what?
clutch my pearl. Yeah. So and another thing is I'm trying to work on having brotherhood, like having that brother side of it too, not just the sisters. So that's
Yeah.
another thing. But
Right.
it's hard sometimes to find those brothers who are aligned in that space too. So I'm grateful for the people that I have found, and I know life is lifing, but whew,
Mm.
it's rough trying to find the brother side. Have you experienced that?
I will say I have experienced that. To be honest, I haven't really been in a space of like probably actively networking in that way, I would say.
Hmm.
But I do have brothers. I have three brothers. So for me, I'm kind of in a space where me and my brothers, my
Right.
brothers, we've been doing this journey, and I've been kind of telling them about the walk I've been on and connecting with them as far
Hmm.
as that goes. But
Right.
like you said, as far as getting into that space, I ain't there yet. But maybe you can help
I be
me
really
get
wanting
to
to.
it.
I want to
Yeah.
because friendship is the foundation. If I can find a good
Hmm.
godly friend that's a man, I'm
Yeah.
all for it. Like I'm not against it. I don't think it should just be like sisters over here and brothers over here. You
Right.
know? So
Right. And
yeah.
that's why I even talk about, like on my podcast, I talk about, taking accountability for ourselves. As women, we do certain things or we make certain decisions, and it's not always about, I guess specifically talking to like relationships, male and female, like it's not always about, well, these men ain't ish and da da da. It's like, well, we all have to take accountability. He might have did some stuff, might have did some stuff too, sis. So let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And I
Back
really try
at
to right. And I really try to encourage like to put that out there. Like there's still good men out here. There's still men out here that will do nice things and not want anything in return. There's still men out here that open doors for you, that are polite, gentlemen. So, I really try and push that narrative, especially, in the space that we're in, where it's just like every time I talk to somebody, unfortunately, another sister, it's like this dating age, or, just trying to get into the
yeah.
space. It's like, so I just try to push the positivity out there because I feel like the more you do that, the more you change your mindset, you'll attract those things. If that's what you really want and that's what you believe you deserve, put it out there. And I
Yeah.
believe that
Shout
people
out
will receive it.
shout out to all the good black godly men out there listening and watching. We
Yeah,
appreciate you. Salute.
yeah, right.
Keep your head up. Going on this faith walk with us, sisters in Christ. Okay? Just had to say that real quick. And
Mm.
it's just really it's really something though. It really is something. And how do you think your faith changed the way that you approach life?
Mm. It's a whole new thing, a whole new world. Because before, I believe I started this faith walk and this journey, it was like, I'm gonna just be frustrated, or I really didn't have, I guess you could say, like a foundation. Like I've just felt like there was nothing that I could do, or like nobody that I could really go to be like, help me through this. Even though I had family, I had friends, but it's like a lot of things here that happen in this world are kind of out of our control. There's only certain things that we can control. And so once I started this journey, I believe that it really opened my eyes up to, you have a foundation here. You can build upon this, you can reach out to, certain family and friends, like community. And then before you even get to that space, there's God. And it has just, like I mentioned before, it just kind of allowed me to open my eyes, because I know that, all right, when I'm feeling frustrated or when I'm anxious or when I'm nervous about something, like I can just pray about it. I can just talk to God about it. And I feel like those are things that, happen, like you said, with the spiritual connection, is things that people can't really do for you. It's somebody that you have to go through. Like, even through certain stages, these past years, like I've dealt with a lot of like family in the hospital and, just dealing with my own personal health issues. And it's like, yeah, you can talk to people about that, but really getting through it, getting over it, asking God to heal you, asking God to heal your family, really having that space to just say, okay, there is somebody that I can talk to about this because there's really nothing left for me to do. It's kind of out of my
Right.
control, but then you go to him and he can take control of that and, he can help you through that process. So I think that's been like the biggest thing for me is just to pray. I talk to God every day. And I'm in the car, I'm sitting at the house, whatever the case may be, I'm just having conversation. And I believe that's what builds up that connection that you have with him because you can't just talk to somebody and then they not saying nothing back. Like God can extend himself to you, but if you just like like, hello, talk to
Right.
me. Talk to me too,
Right.
so we can have this conversation. And I just feel like that's been so helpful in my life because even when I'm going through things, and like I said, I'll talk to people about it, but then it's like you said, they may not really understand what you're going through, or they may not really get it the way that God gets it, because He knows you, He created you. So He's going to, be able to hear you and understand you and help you process it the way that you're supposed to help you really get over it. So whatever that thing may be. So that's just been a blessing. And I'm just in a space of continuing to build upon that and grow it. So, he can continue to give me more knowledge and more wisdom and understanding to, just live out this life and do it with purpose and, just help me to be a better person and to encourage other people to do the same.
Yeah, it's really something when you think about it like that because I like what you said about the prayer because sometimes we feel like it has to be you laid out prostrate, you crying, you in the dark, you in the closet somewhere. Baby, whatever you need to do, like if you have to just stop where you are, you at
Yeah,
the traffic light. If you're helping your father, like I do, take care of my father. If I'm in the kitchen, wherever I'm at, just talk to God, like you have a relationship with your friends, like you talk to them all the time. And then his word is his way of talking back to us because sometimes we might feel like he's silent, but the word speaks back to us. So it's
right,
because it's living and active, right? So it's like we have to learn that that's the conversation. We talk to him, he talks back through the word, through people, that type of thing. And like just because you don't get an answer right away doesn't mean that it's not going to be an answer because
right,
sometimes he wants you to wait. Sometimes it's no, sometimes it's yes. And that's something I had to learn too. Like, and then a lot of times you'll find yourself um talking to yourself, right? You just going through things, like analyzing what's happening in your life. And I've learned lately, maybe I need to just stop and talk to God. Maybe instead of me just trying to work this out with myself, let me work this out with God and actually talk to Him about it.
right,
Because a lot of times you can get caught up like, man, I can't believe this happened. Why they do that? And I feel like this and then tell him. Like you just
hmm
really sit here going through this whole thing alone, and you don't have to go through it alone.
right,
So it's like it's kind of like when I'm stopping your tracks. I'm like, wait a minute, I could just be talking to God about this. Like, and then as long as you're, my thing is too, people had this kind of stigma around prayer. Like, as long as you're not cursing, you're not saying anything disrespectful, God can handle it. He's not fragile. So
right.
that's what I'm learning to like, man, I don't like this. I don't that didn't feel good or whatever. Like and so just learning to say whatever the thing is, say
Yeah.
it. And that's been really helpful too.
And even going back to what we were saying before, it's like God created us the way He created us. He knows how we act when we're mad, when we're sad. He knows us. So it's
Mhm.
not like you got to put on a front for God. Like,
Right. If
go.
anybody, hey, be vulnerable
Right.
with him.
Right.
He
That
the
part.
only one that really know the whole scope. He sees the whole picture. We only
Right.
see what's happening, right now. He sees that the end from the beginning. He sees the middle. He sees all the people that are going to come your way and do XYZ and make you feel this type of way or teach you this or whatever. And the other people that are in your life, they can't see all that. So that's
Mm-hmm.
like why you were saying like it really ties into that. Like you, they can't see none of this stuff, but God can see all this stuff. So it's like
Right.
go past them and go go to God.
Just go to the source.
Right? Leave all that alone sometimes. Just be like, listen, I love y'all, but I'm gonna have to just talk to the one who made me and see what he say.
That's it. That is it.
So that's the process, man. I'm learning that that's the process that we have to get to that space of going to him first, not
Right.
trying to go to everybody else. Like, what you think? Da, 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 da. Sometimes be quiet, just go talk to him. Like, don't it don't have to be for everybody else. You don't have to tell them yet. Maybe you tell them when you got over it and be like, yo, this is what I learned. But you
Right.
ain't gotta be like, baby, and look at it, run everything down. Work it out with God, and then maybe that'll cut out some of the frustration as well. You
Right.
know. So that's
That's the thing. That's really a thing. And even like whatever way you want to go about it, because like you said, journal, talk to them, listen to worship music or whatever music you listen to while you're sitting down praying. He will speak to you through all these ways, and more and many more. So like you mentioned, certain people, even nature, certain things that will just draw you to it. And it's like that's where it's your responsibility to pay attention because he's talking.
yeah,
You just have to pay attention and listen.
yeah, we gotta learn his voice.
Right.
What would you say, like, if you had to plant a seed for these listeners about faith walking, what would be the one thing you want our brothers and sisters in Christ to take heed to?
Um, I mean, I guess I would say that it's a journey, just kind of basically summarizing everything we talked about. It's something that you have to make a decision about. Like, God will always be here for you when you're ready to make that decision. He doesn't force us into these spaces, He doesn't force us to do anything. It is up to you to make that process, or it's up to you to take that step and decide, this is what I want to do. And, even going back to my personal experience, that was the space that I was in. And I know a lot of times we're in spaces, or I'll just speak for myself, but I was in a space where, I wasn't worried about God. I'm living my life, I'm out here doing what I want to do. And when it came down to me just understanding that I'm at a space where there's nobody else I can go to. So
Hmm.
it's like, well, when I was younger, my parents and stuff, we went to church, and my grandma, talks about the Lord, and she's, definitely been someone who has been rooted, in that space. So all those things started to come back to me like, well, you need to go to God, ma'am. You need to have a conversation. And it was up to me to make that decision. And so far, it's been the best decision. And I don't plan on, going back, because I've been in such a space where he's helped me heal.
Hmm.
He's helped me process a lot of things differently. He's taught me a lot, as you mentioned, by like reading the word and just being exposed to things with a new outlook on it. Him opening your eyes to a lot of different things. And all it takes is for you to make that one decision,
Hmm.
So whether you're contemplating it, or whether you're, deciding if, is this thing real, or how does this work? Just sit down and have a conversation. God, I want to have a better relationship with you. Help me to do that. How do I do that? Read the word, sit and spend time with them. It's just like having, a relationship with other people. It's not something that happens overnight. Like you mentioned, you're still trying to build community with different women, and, getting into those spaces, but you don't just jump into that. You kind of ease your way into it to try and figure out and try and navigate through it to see exactly how this works. But it doesn't work if you're not moving. It doesn't work if
Mm.
you're still sitting in the space that you're in. So you got to take that step and decide, if this is the path that I want to go on. And I feel like all it takes is that one decision, and that can change your life.
That was so powerful because it's so true. We have to make a commitment. You can't have one foot in, one foot out, and we gotta say yes and like say yes and mean it.
Right.
And then it's hard sometimes because you judge yourself for where you at. But it's like he always wants you to come as you are, not as somebody else, not as who you think you should be.
Mhm.
And that's something I had to contend with as far as like, oh, I wish I was here, but I don't know what it took for that person to get there.
Right.
I have to just walk at my pace with God and know that He's okay with that.
Yeah. And I mean, he hears you and he understands that. So, and like you said, he sees everything that's going on. So we might be looking at somebody, like you said, and being like, oh, well, they're here and I'm still here. You don't know what they've been out there doing to get to where they at. You
Yeah,
So, and even with me, like just talking from my own personal experiences, like there's certain times where, yeah, I've wished that I was in a different space, or I wish that I was maybe a lot further ahead than I might be in my life right now. But what I've understood is that the more I continue to have that relationship with God, the more he opens my eyes to certain things, and it's like, dang, I'm glad that I went through this breakup when I went through it. Or like, dang, I'm glad that, this relationship ended when it did, because now I'm starting to see people for who they truly are. Now my eyes are open a lot more. So it's those little things that you really don't necessarily see when it's happening. But when you actually go back and reflect, or when you just have that like aha moment, then it's like, you was looking out. And I
yeah.
thank you for that.
God is looking out and He opens our eyes. That's who He is. He's an eye opener.
Yeah.
So are there any projects that you are working on that you want to share with the audience?
Um, Currently I am working on another book. Um, I don't want to give too much away about that yet because still processing, but
Mhm.
definitely working on writing more books. I really enjoy that, just like sharing my experiences. I am going to be working soon. I think I mentioned that. Just trying to create a community. So I'm not sure exactly how I want to set that up, but definitely looking to maybe put that on YouTube or Facebook, some type of platform where it's a safe environment.
Oh, that's awesome.
So there's like no distractions with, other things. We can just come in and chat and connect with each other. Just kind of like you mentioned, just really doing life with each other, asking how each other's day was. It doesn't have to be so, I guess, rooted in a certain, how do I want to put this? Like a certain structure. Like, okay, we're going to do fasting first, then we're going to pray, then we're going to do this and that. It's just like, just have a conversation. How you doing? How
Mhm.
was your day? Or
Right.
if you're dealing with something, be able to come and talk. If you don't have nobody else to talk to, if you feel like you can, relate to certain people in the group, come in and be able to say that, have that space of being able to be vulnerable. So I'm still trying to figure out what that looks like, but I definitely want to get into that space. But for right now, I'm just, focused on trying to put out more videos, tell my story a little bit more. So, yeah, that's pretty much it.
I can relate to that. I actually see in combination with that like a sisterhood network.
Oh,
That's what
check
I
it
feel
out.
like. That joke would be like, okay, we because once you get that bond going, you be like, oh, so you do X, Y, Z. All right, let's team up.
Right.
Bet.
Right. And that's
So
the
that's
thing.
cool.
Like, I'm trying to connect with people who are like in a space where, like, let's do this. Like, we ain't just gonna talk about it, we gonna be about
Execute.
it. Yes.
I'm
Like,
trying to be a woman who executes.
yes. Yes. I'm all for that. So anybody, like you mentioned, just in the beginning of our, conversation, just talking to people who, want to have these conversations, and, not being afraid to be like, all right, you want to do this? All right, I support it. What you need me to do? Like, show up for each other.
Yes.
And that's where I feel like that's going to help us grow. Like, you show up on my channel, I show up on your channel. Like, we both got podcasts, but I'm
Right.
not out here like, oh, well, I'm not going to put her on my podcast because she bigger than da, 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 da. It's like, it's not
Right.
that serious. You bring your gifts and talents to your podcast and you present it the way you present it. And that's why you have the people that you have. I bring a different thing because I'm my own person. I have my own personality. So it's like there's no competition. There should be competition with yourself to grow and evolve.
Right.
You shouldn't be trying to compete with other people because there is no point in doing that.
Right. You can't be them. They can't be you. Let's just collaborate.
Right. I
Yeah.
I don't see any reason why that can't happen. So that's my biggest thing. Like, let's grow, let's build, let's network. Like,
Yeah.
I'm all for that.
But speaking of that, how can the people connect with you?
So I have my own personal page, which is at Charfaye Lynn. I'm on Instagram, and then I have a second page, specifically for the podcast, where I talk about different things, relationships. I share, certain clips from other content creators just to get, a positive message about that. And then I also share clips of the podcast, and that's at Life is Podcast. Um, I'm currently, like I said, kind of working on a community. So I'm not sure if I want to put that on Facebook or
Hmm.
maybe do something that, is kind of off social media.
Right.
But right now, if you want to connect with me, if you need like mentoring or coaching, that's specifically what I put on my main page, which is at Charfaye Lynn. There's a link in my bio where you can go and book a session with me. I talk to different women about a lot of different things. It could be relationships, it could be, just trying to find a specific strategy for how to navigate, through your single season, or it could just be you're just trying to get into a space of being a better person. How do I work on self-love? What does self-love look like for me? So those are kind of my three main things that, I'm really passionate about, as far as helping other women. So you can find all of that information on my main page at Charfaye Lynn. And then if you're interested in listening to the podcast, it's at Life is Podcast, and that's available on all streaming platforms. You can just search it, Life is Podcast. And then there's also a link in the bio on the at Life is Podcast IG account.
Okay, that's awesome. That is so awesome right there. It's really good because y'all need to check that out because I really appreciate her podcast because she's like so vulnerable. She just talking real life stuff. It's not like so high that you can't relate to it. So go
Yeah.
check that out, y'all. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you for your time and coming to talk with me about faith and how we do this life together and things like that.
No problem. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
And thank everybody for listening and or watching. And make sure you like and subscribe, comment, leave a review or rating if you're listening on Spotify or Apple or any of those types of platforms. And feel free to DM me. Give me your thoughts about this. And make sure you follow me at B Channel 27. And make sure y'all follow Charfaye Lynn at Charfaye Lynn and Life is Podcast on Instagram. All her information will be in the description below. And thank y'all so much again for tuning in. And peace and blessings until next time.